On security matters, we'll be discussing international peace and security, Africa and Nigeria as a case study. I won't be doing this alone. I have in the studio with me veteran journalist and chief consultant to Global TV in the person of Dr. Ali Abdullahi. He's not just that, there's a whole lot more to him, and I will bring you into that in a bit. A very good day to you, Dr. Ali Abdullahi.
How are you, Kemi?
I'm very fine, thank you.
All right.
It's good to have you in the studio.
It's good to be here.
You're from the northern part of the country, and that part of Nigeria has been bedeviled, for a while with some form of insecurity or the other. I don't know. What do you think is the way forward?
Well, actually, I thought we were going to look at the security, looking at it from the perspective of militarization and the Wagner Company.
Of course, we will do that. We're just going to do a backdrop to that.
And it's a holistic thing, Nigeria as a case study. You see, in Nigeria, the largest democracy in the continent of Africa, has played an important role in the international community. With regard to security, over the years, Nigeria has been confronted with insecurity, insurgency. Case on point, the Boko Haram carnage. But thank God that it's now seem to be things of the past because of vibrant leadership and because, of course, of the security that is intact.
Yeah. Some people have been of the opinion, really, that not everything that is happening across Africa is like from Africans themselves. And that takes us to what you mentioned earlier, the Wagner Group, right? They've been in Libya, they've been in Sudan, they've been in the Central African Republic, they've been in Mali. And they are actually supposed to help the country or whoever is the highest bidder, to help them fight whoever they feel they can fight. So I think this is a good place to look at the Wagner Group themselves. Can we take a look at their history, so to speak?
The Wagner is a private military company, and is based in Russia. The founder was a colonel, who served in the Soviet military, and a close friend to the current president of Russia, Putin. They are like missionaries, and they first came to Central Africa. That is in the continent of Africa. They first came to Central Africa in 2018 under the pretext to provide security to Central Africa. But unfortunately, their presence made everybody nervous because of some of the things that they are doing. The atrocities pretty much was so profound, has reached an alarming proportion. Lots of atrocities that to the extent the government even didn't want them to continue there. They are also in Ukraine, they are in Mali, and what have you, under that practice. But still people are nervous because of how they have come across the continent with baggage of human rights violation, molestation, and what have you, and to some extent even looting.
Let's take let's take a background to Wagner, for example. They're going across African countries for now, asking that they be their security provider. But if we look at where they originated from, Russia, for example, even the Prigozhin, who's supposed to be the head now, seem to have wanted to take on Putin, right? In recent weeks, he was actually accusing Putin himself, of not giving their group enough weapons and all of that. And if they're coming to African countries, I think one of the questions that we as Africans should ask ourselves is, of what benefit is this to us as a nation if people who are paid for hire decide to say they want to be in charge of our security? That takes us to the Nigerian army. Would you say that maybe we need some of these people to help us with some of the challenges, security challenges we face? Do African countries in general actually need such people?
Okay, first of all, let's look at it from the perspective of international relations by defining what is international relations. International relations, interaction among sovereign state. The scientific study of those interactions, what is called international politics, international studies, and international affairs. To some extent, it's what is pretty much, if you would, public diplomacy. So if, for instance, the Wagner, which is a private military organization, wants to come to Nigeria, first of all, what kind of relationship does Nigeria have with, for instance, the Soviet Union? You know, and of course, I remember during the heat of the insurgency, with the kidnapping and what have you, the insecurity, so many things that are threat to the national security, there was a debate whether to hire quote-unquote mercenaries to come and tackle the security issues. And of course, Nigeria, as big as it is and as important as it is, also its role in the continent of Africa as the largest democracy, decided that, well, they don't want to go to through that route. I mean, security matters. It's a more of an internal things for a particular country. That's why we have a standing army. And bringing a missionary is like undermining the army role. And because of that, that has not been actually accepted.
That appears to be a very good decision that the Nigerian government made. If we look at what is going on in Mali at the moment, if we look at what is going on in places like Libya, Central Africa, where Mali, for example, about 300 men were asked to dig their own graves, you know, by these mercenaries, and they were killed. And you know, and for Mali too, still Mali, over 422,000 of people, 422,000 humans have been killed, and that's actually the highest, and that occurred in 2022 since they allowed this group to be a part of their you know, military formation. But then that takes me to what they want as a people. What do these mercenary want? Because maybe if you know what they want, because I was actually listening to a documentary recently, and it said they have actually, that the Wagner Group itself has moved more than wanting just money. They want power, they want, so if they are, you know, telling African countries, for example, that let's be a part of you, would that not mean that we're submitting our sovereignty to them?
Absolutely, it's compromising our sovereignty, you know, to some extent, because they are bad news with the illustration that you have made. You know, even right now, their presence is in Ukraine, where there is a war. You know, so it's bringing a lot of confusion and what have you. And again, let's coming back to Nigeria as a case study here. Nigeria has over the years make it clear that Nigeria, more as a progressive country, liberal, does not believe in aggression or invading any other country. This was, you know, articulated by the first Prime Minister of Nigeria, also the first Foreign Minister, the late Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, that, but, you know, we are going to be brothers keepers. And that has been the role of Nigeria. Even right now, recently, with the emerge of the President of Nigeria, Ahmed Tinubu, the chairman of ECOWAS, illustrated that important role that Nigeria is playing. And it has to do with security, if not emerge as the chairman of ECOWAS. So that is a scene. They say that Nigeria, the whole continent gets called.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting to also note that during his acceptance speech, the current president of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, again.
Absolutely.
It's also important to note that, and you did mention earlier about the fact that in the Ukraine-Russian war, one cannot even tell where exactly they stand as mercenaries, because recently it was actually said that they turned against Russia themselves, and Russia was supposed to be the country that hired them, you know, and unfortunately, apparently what the Prigozhin tried to do backfired against him, because he was hoping and expecting that the Russians will have, and Africans rely on, you know, such a group.
Well, you know, sort of kind of presenting themselves as this Samaritan, this kind of activist missionaries, trying to have the underdog, so to speak. But at the same time, if you analyze the whole thing, is if I may draw this analogy, it's not different from what we experienced in the 70s and the 80s, the Cold War phenomena, whereby if a country is pretty much in a good relationship, or rather have a bilateral relationship with the Soviet, then it's like, it's more communistic oriented country. If it's the West, is more democratic. But again, the Civil War, the Cold War came to an end when Reagan and Gorbachev merged together. And of course, in this instance, we can say the United States, America, actually emerged as a winner in terms of continue with democracy, and socialism and communism pretty much gone down the drain when Gorbachev actually feel he's the one who killed the era of the Cold War. But this Wagner thing is pretty much another definition or another re-emergence of another Cold War, if you will.
All right, you're watching Security Matters on Global TV. We're live on Star Times channel 276, and we're taking a look at the Wagner Group, mercenary group, a pay-for-hire security, group that came out of Russia. We'll take a quick break, and when we do come back, we'll look at the foundation of how the Wagner Group itself started. Welcome back. You're watching Security Matters on Global TV. We're live on Star Times channel 276. My name is Kemi Ashekwan. We've been discussing security issues. Basically, we're looking at what is going on in Africa and, of course, the international community. We're looking at international peace and security Africa with Nigeria as a case study. And, of course, taking a brief look at the Wagner Group, who are a pay-for-hire mercenary group who offer their services to different countries as a form of protection for these countries outside of their own military. But then, before the break, we did say to you that we will be taking a brief look at the history of Wagner Group itself. I still have with me Dr. Ali Abdullahi, who's the Chief Media Consultant to Global Television, and of course a veteran journalist and someone who's very interested in international security matters. Doctor, it would be great to take a look at the Wagner Group in itself. How did they even start?
Well, if you would, it's a configuration of criminals, so to speak, because how they came about. The Soviet Union look at some people, inmates, and form them as mercenaries. And that is why even when they were in Africa, Central Africa, the first time they came to the continent in 2018, that was demonstrated. We've seen a lot of carnage, a lot of atrocities to civilians, and that's why people are apprehensive to have them as mercenaries.
Okay, well, I have a document in front of me here that says the alarming record reflects the nature of the Wagner Group itself. Wagner mercenaries are not regular trained soldiers, but men who are often elderly, inexperienced, violent, and sometimes drugged. And most of them are actually recruited from Russian prisons, hoping to negotiate remissions of their sentences, and the manifestation of racism are numerous and well documented. And we do know how some of the some white people view Africans as just one. Have these people who've gone to prison out of the wrongs they have committed against the society. And at the end of the day, they come to the different African countries to say, oh, we want to protect you. How much protection should we really expect?
Absolutely none. In fact, that is why, again, like I indicated, countries like Nigeria, when it's mentioned they are coming, everybody is nervous. And of course, Nigeria will not accept that, because Nigeria, as a sovereignty, has played its role. Nigeria, if you remember, has contributed to peace in Liberia. Nigeria is the first country that initiated war against apartheid in the 70s. In fact, the conference was held in Lagos, when you mention racism. And the apartheid system is a rule, is what was happening at blacks. And Nigeria and other countries, part of Nigerian foreign policy is pretty much to see that a country is not suppressed. And Nigeria has contributed immensely to the end of apartheid, supporting the ANC, African National Congress, with finances, with other, weapons, if you would. And the history has been very kind to the extent that apartheid came to an end. And now what we're seeing is another different ball game of something that is not going to be acceptable. The Wagner, as far as Nigeria is concerned, has no place in Nigeria.
Well, I think that another question to ask ourselves will be, why should anybody be interested in fighting for Nigeria, if not Nigerians themselves, right? If the people decide that they want to fight for you, what do they stand to gain from fighting for you? You do know that Nigeria has quite a number of mineral resources, many of them untapped, were fertile in different ways and different forms. A lot of our minerals are beneath the ground. So my next question will then be, if the Wagner people decide that they want to come and fight for Nigeria, right? What will Nigeria...
It's not even kind of fighting for Nigeria. It's more of like giving assistance. But of course, that is why we have organizations like even the UN Peacekeeping Force. Even Nigeria needs that, based on that bilateral relation. They can come in. We have the NATO. And of course, Nigeria, to some extent, in my opinion, Nigeria is above that, because Nigeria by itself has been providing those kind of services. We have the ECOMOG. We have also, to some extent, another peacekeeping force that get ready even to go to Ukraine. Absolutely.
It is said that in the part of Nigeria where I come from, it is said that if a person will clothe you, you first look at what they're wearing. In Russia, where the Wagner Group themselves actually are clothed in war as we speak right now, since they originated from Russia, it will be difficult to say they want to come to Nigeria or to any other African country, for example, to fight for those African countries just because they are interested in. You would recall that since they offered their services in the various African countries that they have so far, there has been issues of mass killings, there have been issues of violence against women, there's been issues, so many issues. But then the question to ask ourselves, what is Wagner's particular interest and where are they getting finances from?
Yeah, of course, this is inquiry mind wants to know. I mean, what is it that they want? And we know, for instance, the American foreign policy is permanent interest. It's all about interest, So obviously, the Wagner as a military private military company with the backing of the Soviet. Remember, I indicated the founder was a colonel of the Soviet army and also a friend of
Vladimir Putin.
So you see, pretty much, I think, looking at that context, everything is self-explanatory.
But at this moment, he himself is that's the second founder, Prigozhin, something like that, right? He himself is going at loggerheads with President Vladimir Putin himself.
It's conflict of interest.
Exactly. But from this document I have here with me, it says Wagner Group builds its economic model and finances its operations through economic predation on a country's resources, particularly particularly on mining, e.g. in the Central African Republic, that is known for a lot of gold, Sudan, and oil in Syria and Libya, Mozambique, or in the country's budget itself to the detriment of the local authorities. And like you did mention earlier, Wagner in itself causes tension with the military forces because it says to you that you have lost faith in the capacity of your military. And of course, that is demoralizing for the military men, you know.
But, you know, for instance, again, international relations allows that, but that is when two sovereign nations have an understanding, you know, like, for instance, the United Nations, that's what it provides, and the NATO also provide that kind of services. But these mercenaries, you know, I mean, wherever they are bad news, and of course, we don't need them in Nigeria. When they were in Central Africa, 2018, they committed a lot of atrocities.
Well, amongst
you
what they committed from this document here, it says looting of forests, customs services, extraction of numerous gold mines, and including
and also even espionage, you know, become a spy, you know, all your secret and what have you. So that's something a country has to be very careful about. And Nigeria is not your ordinary country. I mean, Nigeria is extraordinary in terms of population, human and natural resources, you know, all these things, you know, and of course, thank God they are not here, and we hope that they will never come here. And of course, Nigeria Standing Army, I believe it had the competence, you know, and the capacity to actually protect the Nigerian territorial areas.
But from what we are seeing thus far, are we getting to the edge of a World War III? Many people are afraid of that.
Well, I mean, it's more, as far as I'm concerned, it's more of a cliche. War is going on in every day, even in someone else's backyard. So, I mean, that first, Second War, I think it is staged out. I mean, and that is why there is the need for another social order. I think the United Nations needs to get its act together to see that there is peace. You know, that is how it came about. But it looks like, you know, the essence of even the United Nations, in a way, it has been defeated. Because when we have First, Second War, then all nations, when I mentioned countries that have common ground in terms of, you know, relation, they came together. But over and over, when they go to the National Assembly meeting, you find a lot of criticism. For instance, what's the role of United Nations with regards to what is happening in Israel with the Palestinians? I mean, it's been going on even in Southern Sahara, the Polisario, you know. These are things that in the beginning, in the 60s, when countries, especially African countries, are getting independence, particularly Nigeria, was concerned about that. And Nigeria has played a very good role in terms of its resources. And even the Nigerian press was very instrumental in trying to critique all those kind of aggression, you know, yes.
Well, you're watching Security Matters live on Global TV. We're live here, Star Times Channel 276, and we're taking a look at the international peace and security with Africa and Nigeria as a case study. It might be a good time to take a look at Sudan. Sudan security issues, you know.
Well, I think Sudan's story is really sad. It's part of the African saga, whereby, you know, a country with the same common denominators, the same history, the same background, and because of people, of, you know, another word, bad leadership, and that's why, and selfishness, that's why Sudan is where it is now.
Although the Wagner Group have gone into Sudan, one must also, you know, pay attention to the fact that before they went into Sudan, there was this paramilitary group who had actually, you know, said they were trying to help the government, and then eventually turned against the government.
Well, that is the camouflaging that they always come with, under the practice of, okay, we're here to bring peace. You know, like they are the peacemakers, the peace brokers. But, you know, it's all about interests. And I mean, it's not different from when some of the Europeans start exploration, you know, their voyage of discovery of Africa. It's not only about the adventures and what have you. but it's also about wealth.
Resources.
So that's basically what it is. And the world has not changed that much with regards to that. In fact, the greed is even more alarming now than even what it was before. But again, the good news is that I think, again, we have to think that Africa has come of age, and we are wiser and educated, and as long as we can get our act together, this thing can be overcome.
Absolutely, with good leadership, this thing can be overcome. Well, it looks like this is where we draw the curtain today on security matters. I've been speaking with Dr. Ali Abdullahi, a veteran journalist, not just a veteran journalist, one who's very passionate about international relations and security, and of course, a new social order. But most of all, he's our chief consultant here at Global Television. Hopefully, when we discuss again, we'll be taking a look at some more things that Africans can do to protect themselves by themselves without necessarily hiring mercenaries.
Well, already we're a sovereignty. Most African countries are not under any colonialism. They got independence. For instance, Nigeria, almost 60-something years of independence. So we're a sovereignty, and like I mentioned, Nigeria, it's a critical stakeholder in the United Nations. It's a member of the Security Council, and that is a very powerful council, and Nigeria is there. So, what we need to do is get our act together and define what it is, our foreign policy, and then take it from there.
Absolutely. Well, the next time we come your way, we'll be taking a look at some of the incidences of what Wagner is doing in some French-speaking nations across Africa. But that will be next time. My name is Kemi Ashikun. Thank you for being a part of Security Matters. We'll see you again soon. Have a great day.